I remember the first time I saw the lake. It was beautiful in a way I'd never seen before. Still, black water that stretched to the horizon, framed by dark trees. There was something ancient about it, something forgotten. The air was thick, as if the lake itself exhaled a heavy sigh that settled into the forest around it. We had been hiking for hours, me, Erik, and Dana. Our plan was simple: camp for the night by the water, enjoy a break from civilization, and leave at dawn. But as we reached the clearing by the lake, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Not by animals, not by people. By the water. I tried to brush it off. Just my mind playing tricks, I thought. The long hike, the isolation. It's natural to feel a little off in the wilderness. But the feeling stayed, growing stronger as the day wore on. Even when the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, the lake remained unnervingly still. No ripples, no fish jumping, no sounds of the forest creatures near its edge. Later that night, after we set up camp, Erik insisted we go for a swim. Dana was all for it, always the adventurous one. I hesitated, but their enthusiasm eventually wore me down. We waded in together, the icy water shocking against my skin. It was deeper than I expected. I could barely touch the bottom a few feet from shore. That's when I felt it. Something brushed against my leg. I froze, my heart hammering. My rational mind screamed, "A fish!" But this was different. It wasn't quick like a fish darting by. It was slow, deliberate, almost like a hand. I yanked my leg up and stumbled out of the water, panting. Erik laughed, splashing water at me. Dana just shook her head, amused at my panic. But I could feel it. The lake wanted something, or someone. That night we settled into our tents, but I couldn't sleep. The oppressive silence of the place weighed on me. No wind, no rustling leaves, no insects. Just the lake, black and still. Around midnight I heard a sound. Something soft, rhythmic. A splash. Then another. I unzipped my tent as quietly as I could and peeked outside. The moon was high, casting a pale light over the lake. And that's when I saw her. Dana was standing at the water's edge, staring out into the abyss. Her back was to me, but something about the way she stood, it was off. Her arms hung limp at her sides, and her head tilted slightly, like she was listening to something. I whispered her name, but she didn't move. The splashes continued, regular now, like someone was treading water in the distance. I called her name again, louder this time. Nothing. Before I could move, she began to walk. Not away from the lake, into it. "Dana!" I shouted, scrambling out of my tent. My voice seemed to snap her from whatever trance she was in. She turned to me, and I'll never forget the look on her face. Her eyes were wide, her skin pale, and her lips were trembling, like she was trying to speak but couldn't. Without thinking, I ran to her, grabbing her by the arm. She fought me at first, but I managed to drag her back to shore. She was shivering, her teeth chattering so violently that I thought they'd break. Erik woke up at the commotion, and together we wrapped her in blankets. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. It called me," she said, staring at the lake with hollow eyes. "It wants me." We packed up and left immediately, abandoning the campsite in the middle of the night. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us, just beyond the trees. And as we hiked back to civilization, Dana kept looking over her shoulder, eyes fixed on the direction of the lake. She didn't speak again for the rest of the trip. That was weeks ago. Dana's been different ever since. Distant, quiet, always looking out windows as if she's waiting for something. Erik and I don't talk about the lake, but I know it's been on his mind too. Sometimes late at night, I can hear him muttering in his sleep, begging something to leave him alone. As for me, I can't sleep at all anymore. Every time I close my eyes, I feel it. A pull, a whisper in the back of my mind. The lake hasn't forgotten us. It's waiting, and I'm afraid it won't wait much longer.